so the unhealthy way that I think people are trying to strive for these goals is they believe that if I accomplish or do something external, it will change something within me. The healthy way that my opinion would be, that when you go after something bigger than you've ever done before, that goal will force you to become the person that you inevitably would need to be in order to make that goal a reality.
To Jai Long, and this is Make Your Break. Whether you're a big-hearted creative or an aspiring entrepreneur, let's take action on your dreams, reconnecting you with your why and giving you the how. I'm here to dish out actionable mindset tips and fun industry secrets to help you blow up your biz. From eye-opening reality checks to motivational gold, no two episodes are ever the same. So tune in weekly, skip the FOMO, and let's dive into the deep together. Hey, so I have James Wedmore with me. He's from the Mind Your Business podcast. He's also got a lot of really cool training programs and things like that. But I think above all else, James, I actually found you a few years ago. I've obsessed over your content, your way of thinking, your way of life, your zest of life, and everything that you stand for. So I'm really excited. And I think it's a long time coming for me to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you, Jai. I appreciate you having me. I'm excited for whatever we're going to talk about, man. I feel like I'm eager to share some cool stuff. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's get straight into it because there's so many really interesting things that we can go over. And I know today we're going to talk a little bit about, like us scaling up and hitting our first $1 million launch, what that means for us and our money mindset around that and why that's a big milestone for us. And it's things like that. So stay tuned because that's going to be really interesting. But before we get into that, I'd love to just ask, like, who are you and what are you doing right now?
Oh man, what am I doing right now?
Yeah.
I'm learning how to play the guitar. That's been the last 12 months, just about 12 months. Just like the most epic journey for me. I always love learning something new. So I'm a student. I obsess over learning things and seeing the progress and growth in my life in every area. So that's what I was literally doing right before this, is practicing guitar. And now my little sister who's watching me and she's starting her business. She's actually like a great student case study for us. And she's like, I want to learn how to play too. So that's what I was doing. Now, but I've been running my online business now for 15, 16 years. It started as an idea in 2007 to create an online bartending school. That was the original idea, and launched it, learned a lot of lessons, made a lot of mistakes, but actually made money with that. And
I feel like there would have been only like few in between that made money back then online, like they do now.
Yeah. Oh, we would talk about that. There must only be like 100 of us in the world.
Yeah. I mean, back then you probably thought there was lots of people, but really there was almost no one.
Yeah. No. And it was really funny. We actually, this video is on the internet still. It's on YouTube. I did it in 2009. My buddy and I interviewed strangers like, what you see on TikTok and stuff today. And we asked them in 2009, how do you make money on the internet? And just think about the different time. And people were like, you don't. Oh, wow. It's a scam. Like, that's what? No, and then the only thing people could come up with, the two answers was eBay or porn. And that's what the internet was back there and back then. And I created this online bartending school and it made money. I was like super stoked. I made my first sale on April 18th, 2008. Like that day changed my life. $200 to get my whole, and it came with like a physical book and CD-ROM and everything. And what I found with that, I wasn't like, I want to be the bartender guy for the rest of my life. That's my dharma right there, is teach people how to make drinks. But what I really loved doing was the creative aspect of it. And I had gone to film school. So I was making these videos back in 2000. I mean, YouTube came out in like 2006 and it was 2007, 8, 9. And I'm putting all these videos on YouTube, and we didn't have cameras on our phone. The iPhone had come out in 2007. Like the video camera wasn't even a thing yet. So people had flip cams. They're doing the big DV cams where you had to convert all that nonsense. And I'm making videos. People started asking me left and right, like, how are you doing this? So that's what I started teaching. I built a $1 million a year business teaching YouTube and teaching how to make videos for your business. And there was a point in time where it was the same theme of like, okay, now what? Now what's next? What's the bigger evolution? And I just said, I really want to show people how I've done this. And that was like really the big passion was less on the marketing side, more on the business side. I think people collapse the two in this industry because marketing is so important in our line of work. But at the sake of business, they have something that's a total shit show behind the scenes. And it's like, yeah, maybe I'm getting famous on Instagram, or I'm getting the engagement, or I'm the who's who of whatever, and I'm making some money. But if I peek back behind that curtain, it's a nightmare. And I know that because that was me. And I was so stubborn and determined to like figure out how to actually run a business like a business. And when we did that, we scaled the company from 2 to 10 million in 1 year. And
that's
that was
exponential
like
growth right there.
exponential, like on a whole nother like stratosphere with a team of like 7 of us. Wow. And it was because we had this like well-oiled machine, and it was kind of like everything came together. And that's really what like I love teaching and helping people with today. But yeah,
was it hard for you to even sort of pivot back then? Because even just thinking about that, like creating video content, and for bartenders, all of a sudden you have to get a whole new audience, whole new messaging, everything would have to change for you.
This is one of the most common questions that I get. I created my podcast, Mind Your Business podcast. I did the first episode in January of 2016 after years of building up a huge YouTube channel. Like I was the YouTube guy, right? And people ask me, was it hard to pivot? How did you do that? How did you pivot? And honestly, it wasn't hard for me at all. I think it was harder continuing to do that niche because than it was to pivot. And that was because, and that was a beautiful lesson for me, because I knew where my heart, I got to discover really where my heart was, because I was making $1 million plus dollars a year, but the biggest difference I was making in someone's life is like they posted their first video on YouTube and it was like crap. And it was like, oh, you got like, it was like they followed all the steps. They got the camera and it looks good. And then they're just like, they look like a deer in headlights. They look so nervous and so scared. And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't have posted that one. And I'm like, this is what my work is doing in the world. Like, that's what I'm doing.
Oh, man.
And that was really weighing on me. And so what I did, I call it the Indiana Jones pivot, because there's that iconic scene where he's at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he switches the golden idol for the bag of sand. So it was a very strategic transition in that I don't do anything drastic. Like I'm burning it all down. I just slowly introduced the new evolution while I was pulling back on it. And it was a seamless transition. But I will tell you, regardless of that, when I put that podcast out and I started doing those first episodes, and I started talking about a lot of things that are more common today that weren't back then. We started talking about like intuition and manifestation and managing your energy,
mindset stuff,
all the mindset stuff. And people, like my audience, were like dudes that were like videographers, and they were like, screw this guy, he's gone crazy, he's nuts. Nope. And my email list went from 200,000 to 30,000, but the revenue stayed the same. And then we kind of like had to figure out what that new business was, and that took a couple of years. And then I think it was 2018, and it just went and exploded to 10.
You know, it's so incredible. There's so many things that you can unpack there. But even for myself, I remember in 2015, I started coaching and I was doing mindset stuff and no one knew what that was. And so I was basically saying it was untrendy and unsellable. And then I think in like 2019, it became really trendy all of a sudden. And I was already there. And I was like, oh, I didn't even change anything. But all of a sudden, all these clients came in, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the level of awareness for it from the average person has become so much greater, and that makes me so happy, because when people say, "Why did you start talking about all these things on your podcast?" I said, because that was the difference that made the difference. Not making videos. Yeah. That was the 5%, but the 95% was everything that the work I was doing on myself was what made the difference, and I can't not talk about that stuff. So.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel you when you say that you weren't getting the fulfillment yourself because you weren't seeing the results in your clients because they just weren't doing the work. And so it was like a really hard train to be on, isn't it? Even if you're getting paid good money.
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing, because it's like, it's on one hand, it's just telling you like, well, what does matter to you? And where is your heart? And maybe there's something more. And I'm a firm believer today that we're here for a reason. There's something we're here to do, and it's something bigger than us, and it's different for every person. And the quicker you figure out what that is and do that, the quicker you're going to be more successful, and your life's going to work on a higher level. And I think it's when you're denying that for whatever reason, fear, safety, familiarity, things are actually going to be harder for you. And so I'm always paying attention to that. And that's led me to this place. And so I'm very grateful for that I trusted that, because it went against all logic. And that's a thing that like a lot of people, especially dudes, but a lot of people struggle with, is like, we're so in our head. We so overthink, we logic everything to death. And so many of the biggest decisions or choices I've made in my life, they were not logical. Like, why would you move away from that? If I had something that was working, are you crazy? Why would you go do this other thing if you have something's working? That would be logical to stay there. But
logic is not the thing that fulfills your purpose, is it? Would you say that you're like half logical, half creative?
I would say, if I'm to give myself some credit, and I only do that because I feel like a lot of my job is to continue to look back and reflect at what got me to where I am, and offer that for people. And as I have that reflection, I say I'm really proud of the ability to have a wonderful balance between the left and the right brain, the masculine and the feminine, the take action and be strategic and be logical, but then be an intuitive, creative. And when I believe that, and like when I work with clients, a lot of them are like very in the feminine. I work with a lot of female clients, and they're just all about like, well, you know, if my energy's right, they'll just know, and but they don't have a strategy. They're not looking at their numbers. They're, you know, they're doing things reactively. Oh, I didn't realize we had to plan all this. And when we can, you know, find our own balance between that. And then there's a lot of guys that is like, you're just all 3D, and you think, which is that's how I started. If you just work harder, if you just work longer, you'll be more successful than the other guys. And I don't buy that, because I know a lot of people that are working way harder for way longer, and they're not seeing results. Yeah, exactly. So I'm very grateful that I was able to find my own balance between the two. That's served me pretty well.
Yeah, I love that so much. Hey, so let's get into talking about just like a few milestones in our businesses. I know, like, I often hear a lot of entrepreneurs talking about like the milestone of like doing a launch and hitting $1 million, and that's like a big thing. So why do we put ourselves like through this pain of creating big milestones for ourselves and then trying to keep ourselves accountable to achieve these successful points in our career?
Well, I think there's a healthy why, and then there's like a unhealthy why. The unhealthy why to me would be the attachment, meaning, or story that we've put on that outcome. Well, if I hit that goal, if I hit that million, it means I'm the best, I'm successful, I'm deserving, I've made it. I'll finally, you know, let's go into all the childhoods. I'll finally be happy. I'll finally be happy. I'll finally be enough, and all of that. And that's pretty unhealthy, because you are not your accomplishments. And you know, to live a life, and I was going down that path, where you believe your external accomplishments will fill the voids of your life, of what you feel like is missing, is a very, that's, I believe, one reason why really famous people, there's a lot of examples of them like not having a good life when they have it all, because there's something as a mirage, as a belief that is missing within them, that they thought all these things would fill. Actually, when I partnered with somebody back in 2011, this was my buddy Lewis Howes, and we partnered together and we created a product, and that was the first time I saw like real success. We did $400,000 in sales in 30 days, selling a $97 product. It was life-changing. Wow. And I fell into a deep, dark depression after that. And it wasn't, you know, because hindsight's 2020. It wasn't until after that I realized, when I saw the money in the bank account, but I didn't see any change in me, that was very scary, because I had spent the last 4 or 5 years chasing or running away from myself to become someone I wasn't. And I thought that success would finally do it. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. We lie to ourselves all the time. So there's probably going to be people in listening like, I don't do that. Because I didn't think I was doing it until I hit that money, that money in the bank account.
Oh, we
and
all
I'm
do
like,
it.
and that was really scary. Because I was like, what was I doing this all for? Is that what I was driven for? And I still feel like I still feel not enough. I just felt I was full of self-loathing. I hated myself. It was really weird. Like, but I didn't like. I was just like, I'm just a loser. Like, I'm a piece of shit. But if I made a bunch of money, then like I'm not anymore. But I was still treating myself that way, and I'm like, whoa, that was scary. Here's what changed
Do
that.
you wait, just
So,
before you go
go
on?
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do you feel like when you had that realization and you hit that point, it was almost like releasing some shackles on yourself, and then you were able to like hit another level within yourself, self-development, business, everything?
Eventually, yes. I mean, at that point, that low was the first time I saw that I had the shackles.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was scary because I was just convinced I was if as soon as I make money, like then life can start and I will be normal, accepted, good enough, and all that. And when none of my internal world changed because my bank account changed, that was where I was like, okay, something's wrong here. And I went into like a really dark depression. I stopped working. I like didn't get off the couch for days and then weeks of just doing nothing and kind of became a hermit. And that was just like, wow. Then something happened. And this has been a common theme in my life. And I hope it's not just me. I hope this is for other people as well. Because all I can really do is share my story. I got the first testimonial in. And it was like imagine feeling just like the most unhappy. And then all of a sudden, like someone just like throws love in you. They're like, and you're like, church, try to stay unhappy now. And then you get another one and another one and another one. And I still remember the first one I got. It was from a gentleman by Jason Brown. That was in 2011. It was December of 2011. I can still remember. That's how powerful that was
his
for
name.
me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because that was 12 years ago. And he's continued to be a client for the last 12 years. Today, he's a coach for us. He has a multiple 7-figure business. And he's like a good friend. And he just wrote in something that said, like, holy shit, this stuff really works. Because I was teaching a YouTube program. He's like, this stuff really works. This is such a game changer. I just posted a video and I just made $1,000. This is just James guy is a, genius, blah, 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 And I was like, whoa, what was that? Like, I just got hit with something I did actually made an impact on somebody. And then the next one comes in and the next one. And it was like, all right, kid, try to stay unhappy, try to stay depressed, And all of a sudden the target started to change. And I talk about this a lot of like, what are our targets? And I think with social media and all this stuff, we're chasing significance, we're chasing attention. I believe this is the one that's really uncomfortable. And I think not a lot of people want to hear, but I think there's a lot of people that are trying to be the online expert and the influencer today because they have a deep, unhealed need to be heard and not to help, just to be heard. And I'll say whatever I need to say, just so you'll listen to me. And they're trying to learn a lot just so they can convince themselves and others that they're of value because they believe that they're not. And if you just listen to me, and that's what I was doing. That was the first iteration of that. And so I see that in a lot of people. And when I started noticing like this is helping people, I was like totally addicted to that. And that really drove that. And it still does to this day. And I really do think like to any person in the content expertise, coaching, information, whatever space, if that was true, because like only you can do that, you can fake it and no one would never know. So it's only like if you're going to lie to yourself or not, that becomes your biggest secret weapon because everything is through that lens is how can I help people? How can I help them more? How can I be more effective, more efficient? And you're constantly like evolving yourself so that you can be better. And I recently went through some really tough stuff in my life. I went through someone who I thought was like a really good friend, all in like the same like 1 month span, someone trying to cancel me on the internet while my dad died and I get divorced by my wife, all in like a month. Like it was just like the perfect, and it was really tough. And even the divorce was over 2 years of a process. I mean, that was just like, imagine just like trying to run and grow your business. And it's just like someone left the TV on in the other room. And, it's just like, it's always on. It's always in the background. And people ask me all the time, how did you get through that? They're like, we would have never known. How did you get through that? And I was like, well, I just bottle it down. I just bury it deep down. And no, what allowed me, what helped me the most, it's almost too simplistic that people don't apply it. But for me, it just was like, whatever I'm going through will strengthen me and empower me to help others, because other people will go through this. And I mentioned these things on my podcast, not to be like, look at me or anything or pour me, but the amount of people that come on to me and they're like, I was going through something like that. And like the way you shared or what you shared helped me in immeasurable ways. And so today there's a context of my life of whatever I'm going through is an opportunity for me to grow so that I have more to give, because you can't give what you don't have, right? And we learn through experiences. Sadly, sometimes we got to learn the big lessons through the really shitty experiences. And I went through some of those, but I learned more about myself in the past 2 years than I have my entire life. I grew more than the last 2 years, and so much good came out of that, right? So
this is the last 2 years for you.
Literally last 2 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Like the divorce ended like 2 weeks ago. Like I'm just on the other side. And it's like, the TV finally got turned off and it's like, oh, peace and quiet. But so the unhealthy way that I think people are trying to strive for these goals is they believe that if I accomplish or do something external, it will change something within me. The healthy way that my opinion would be, that when you go after something bigger than you've ever done before, that goal will force you to become the person that you inevitably would need to be in order to make that goal a reality. And so that's where like all those cliches come in. Like, it's the journey, not the destination. It's like, yeah, but you need the destination in order to go on the journey. And so everything I go after is not because, oh, when I get there, it'll be like, I'll change, I'll be enough, or whatever. It's the opposite. It's that if I go after $1 million launch, or $1 million year, or $1 million day, which we've done, who will I have already had to become in order to make that happen?
Yeah.
So people have got it all freaking backwards. They think this thing will change me. And it's like, no, the goal will force you to choose change first to allow the outcome to come to fruition. If that, hopefully I said that eloquently and clearly enough, that makes sense for people. So it really is who you become in the pursuit and process. That's why I set goals today. And I don't just do linear where it's just like more, bigger. It's dynamic. It's like, how can you maintain what you have while cutting your hours in half, or while increasing your profit and reducing expenses. So it doesn't just have to be always more, which people don't really understand. But what's the new game that I'm going to play that's going to cause me to shift? And when people ask me, how did you take the business to 10 million? I said, well, the first thing I had to do, the leading question was every single day. And this is so honest and accurate in every way possible. I was obsessed and living into a question of how does an 8-figure company run? What are the decisions, the habits of an 8-figure business owner? Here was an important one. Where is the value of an 8-figure CEO? Where does he or she place their time, their effort? What do they work on? What do they focus on? What do they say no to? What do they delegate? What do they put in place? How do they run that business? And I obsessed over that question in a relatively healthy way. And I got it wrong a lot of times, but you start to get it right a few times. And what came out of that was we got that outcome. And I'll tell you this, it'll be the last thing I say here, and I promise I'll shut up. But we had a coach for one of my employees. We hired a leadership coach for one of the employees, and she wanted to get on a call with all of us because she heard that I was going to want, my goal for the company was 10 million. She wanted to talk me out of it. She laughed at me. She goes, well, wait a second. So Jilly told me that the goal you're doing is 10 million. I said, that's right. What are you guys doing right now? And I said, 2. And she compulsively laughed.
Wow.
And said, like, that's just ridiculous. And, you really shouldn't be setting up your team to fail like that. I was like, okay, noted. And I told my assistant, like, you're not to work with her ever again. Wow. Do not surround yourself with people that laugh at you. But I said, I know I will, because you laugh at me and tell me I can't do it, and I'll do it just to prove you wrong, because I'm that kind of stubborn person. And that gives me an extra little boost. But we did. And I have a CFO consultant that works in the company. He's like retired. He was the CFO of freecreditrepair.com, which was a big startup company, and they sold for a ton of money. So he got a big payout, and he's like retired. And he does this, he works with small businesses in spare time. And he said, I've never, ever seen a small business do what you did without funding,
quickly
without
as
anything
you
like
did.
that. And that was pretty awesome. But it's a lot of like, it's a really thing. It's like, first we transform ourselves from the inside out.
I was going to say that it's so interesting how it's like people just don't even realize the work you had to do on a personal level to get yourself into the space of, one, being the person you want to be, but two, believing that that's possible for you, and then stepping into that and doing the work.
Totally. And then you take that same concept and now apply it to an organization. You have a team, even 4 or 5 people. And it's like, now we have to transform as an organization from the inside out. And that's what we did. It was like each individually, we were growing and emerging from within ourselves. Like we were like these little flowers blooming. And then as a company, we did that. And
so most of your team came with you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I did. Yeah, I did. I took the same. I mean, I'm trying to remember the exact number, but it was about 7 of us. And we didn't, it wasn't like we
on board, everyone's ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Now we brought on other extensions, and it just depends on what, trajectories you want to go down on this conversation. But like certain things I did is I brought on a coaching staff and, community managers. They're never part of our core team. We have a core team that come in an office every day in my hometown of Laguna Beach before I moved. But then we'd have like coaches that would work a couple hours a day, or, maybe 10 hours a week in the business. They were like an extension of us, but it was like just a core team of us. Yeah. And that's what we have right now. We're at, between 10 and 11 million, and we're 8 of us, including me. It's 8 or 9. I can't remember the exact number. So I like to keep things lean, and I have a lot of very different philosophies about business. That I just have as my personal opinion. Like, we don't work with freelancers. I don't look for trained, people with the impressive resumes. Everyone that I have came from zero experience. And, my number 2 in the company, who's like the COO, she's the engine of the company. She was in insurance sales before this, so she didn't know this world existed. Our number 3 in the company, who runs the whole fulfillment department, was a pickup sticks delivery driver. I mean, like it's just a different philosophy I have. And it's like, I'm looking for great people that are going to be on the team, that it's like, I want to go to bat with that person. I'll go to bat for them, but I'll go into battle with them, and we're going to do this together.
It sounds like you really do follow your intuition with that as well. It's like, you have to trust yourself, your own vision, and trust yourself that you are able and capable to steer the ship towards those bigger goals.
100,000%. I mean, I can't tell you like how many times, like the amount of decisions we have to make in a day, as anybody in a position similar to ours, is already vast. There's the studies on decision and willpower fatigue, but you're using such limited resources when you're just using your analytical brain. And that was one of my like secret hacks, is like I'm dating, and dated 20 years ago, and then we're dating again, a psychic. Not a joke, not joking. So she's been a psychic. She's been born gifted, and she's like incredibly like scary psychic. And she trained me. She taught me. She's like, you're really intuitive yourself. Most people are. You just don't. You just have so much noise in your head. You just have so much chatter there that you don't listen to it. And when you learn to quiet the mind, the quieter voice comes through. But it feels like such a leap every time, until you're just like, I know that feeling. It's the same feeling, it's the same thought, it's that. And then that becomes muscle memory. It becomes the unconscious competence of just like, I know what that intuitive feeling feels like. to go left instead of right. But that takes practice. And I look at like I'll never forget this. Like going into 2020, my number two and I looked at each other at the end of the year, and we just looked at each other, and I was like, I am proud of every single decision and move we made. We made like 100 out of 100 of the right things. And this is not to brag or anything. I was just like, we look back and I was like, made the right decisions here, here, here. There were things that we started, things that we stopped, things that we just continued doing. And all these decisions throughout the year. And I was like, we trusted our gut, we listened to our intuition, and we acted on it. Let's just keep doing that. Let's not ever stop doing that. So yeah, big time.
So now you're in the flow of your business, and like everybody just sort of knows that that's where it is. Also, like I'd like to know, like obviously when you get to the point that you're in where you've been doing this for a long time, you're going to get a lot of opinions. You're going to get a lot of people giving you advice. You're going to get a lot of strategies that come across your desk and things like that. Like how hard is it for you to sort of like make sure that you are checking in with yourself first before you're getting swayed by somebody else's opinion?
I'm always checking in with myself. And what I try to do, and I think I'm really good at that as well. And this is like, if someone was just getting started, I would say, whatever plan, process, training someone gives you, like, please just follow it. Just, trust that process. If you trusted to invest in somebody, trust their process. And even if you have your own opinions about it right now, because you're in training mode and you're probably doing something you've never done before. So you have like untrained intuition. And then you get to a place where you understand things. And where I operate today a lot from is understanding that all the different strategies and things that are out there, they all have and operate from a hidden, invisible foundation of principles.
Totally.
And when you know the principles, it doesn't matter what you're doing up here. It's the same thing. You violate the principles, you're not going to get the intended result. I'm going to give you an example of this really quickly. So launches have been around as long as I've been in business. Now I just call launch anything where you have like some sort of experience with free content. Even people do paid launches too. You make an offer. There's usually a deadline. It's like, open the card, close the card, right? And boom. And, we've done $6 million launches doing it that way. And when I started watching people doing it, they do a video 20 minutes long. Boom, that comes out. A couple days later, boom, another video 20 minutes long. Boom, and then a third video. I've watched people do multi-million-dollar just putting out 20-minute videos. And I said, cool. And I did that. And I said, what if I make it not 3 videos, but 8? And instead of waiting a few days, let's do it all at once. And instead of making them 20 minutes, let's still make it 60 minutes long, but each video is like 7 minutes. And in 2018, I think is when they released that, it was our first like Netflix, style, like game-changing launch. And it was completely different. And people were like, what? Wait, why is it 8 videos? Why are they all at once? And everyone's freaking out. It's turning all these heads and getting all this attention. And it's like, if you actually watch the 8 videos overlaid on top of the 3 videos, it's the exact same thing. I changed the things that don't matter, and I kept the things that do the same. And people just think, oh, now 8 videos is what makes you successful or something. You know what I mean? And wrong things. And it's as at the risk of giving the most overused cliche metaphor on the planet, it's the iceberg. When you're a consumer or an audience member, you're looking at the what's above the surface of the iceberg, but you don't see what's underneath. What is underneath are principles of marketing, of sales, of influence and persuasion, of communication, of leadership. And those things need to be in play. And when you understand those, people can give you 100 ideas and you sit there and you say, okay, but I still need the principle of authority here and reciprocity here. And I need the scarcity and urgency over here. And I need to bring in the social proof over there. And I still need to speak to the Yeah, exactly. And you're doing the same thing, but it may look different. And you can't violate those and still be successful. And I see people trying to do that all the time. And then you have to go back to the principles.
You know, I love this because what I do is I like teach business. But the thing is, what people don't realize, it's not only just like what you're talking about, the fundamentals of doing a launch, it's the fundamentals of business, and it works across everything. You know, so
Yeah.
like a lot of people don't realize it's like you could be launching a website, you could be doing a fashion label and putting something out there, you could be like whatever it is. If the fundamentals are not there and you don't have all those ducks in a row, it doesn't matter what strategy you stick on top, you're going to be failing in some way. So I love how you've brought that together for the launches.
Yeah. And, I in 2020, right before COVID came to town, I had just closed escrow on 2 investment properties that I was going to turn into Airbnbs. And everyone around me was like, are you okay? Are you not freaking out? I'm like, why? And they're like, because the whole world shut down and you're starting like a hospitality business. And I'm like, I'm not too worried about it. And I ended up buying 4 and set up 4 Airbnbs in 2020. And same thing. It's like every principle of business and team building and marketing and just like how I put systems in place and how I was hiring and all of it just completely, overlaid. Yeah, just perfectly. And that's so exciting. That's when it's a principle, when it's like universally applicable. And it's like, what does an online education business have to do with, like, you're basically starting a hospitality business, and there's so much, crossover.
Hey, so just going back to our big milestone now, if we're hitting a launch, we're going to launch something out there in the world. We're going to do $1 million launch. And we got ourselves to this point by learning strategies, listening to people, listening to ourselves, doing all the things. Tell me, when that was your milestone, like, how did it feel for you? And did it feel, when you first sort of started pivoting your ship towards that North Star, did you feel like you could do it as accomplishment? Like, did you reach out to a coach? Did you start listening to more podcasts? Like, how did you sort of go about in those early days?
Yeah. So I think the idea of $1 million launch hit me as soon as I had the idea for my signature program, Business by Design. And so this was about March of 2016 is when we had the idea, and we put the like beta program out where I got my first 25 founding members. And that was just to get testimonials and like test out the content. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do $1 million with this thing. And I did the first actual launch and I did like 200,000. And I was really surprised by that. Because I had a big audience and I've been doing this for a long time. So I had expectations of it doing more. And so I was like, oh, that's a bummer. But this is where, like, I feel like I'm different than at least a lot of people when I talk to them. I never lost the knowing and certainty that it was going to do $1 million. What I was caught up to was like the how I was going to get there. I thought I'd get there sooner. I thought this would be it. But what I tell people, and this is a really interesting thing, if they said, let's say we're talking to one of your listeners here, and I said, is it your goal to have $1 million launch? And they could say yes. And I say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is high. Well, how badly do you want that? They're like, it's a 10 out of 10. And then I say, okay, level of belief, 10 is high, 1 is low, that you're going to do that this year. And it obviously depends person to person. But they might say like, oh gosh, like a 2. And I say, if you keep doing what you're doing and you keep progressing, on a scale of 1 to 10, what's the level of belief that you will hit it in this lifetime? And every single person says 10. So time, or the illusion of it, and our relationship to it is a really funky thing. And that's where I had to remove time from a lot of those types of milestones and just say, it's going to happen when I'm ready. And if there's more for me to let go, there's more for me to learn, there's more for me to unlock or figure out, then it's really up to me on how good of a student am I going to be to figure that out quickly. Is it going to take me 10 years to learn my lessons, or can I figure it out by the end of the year? That will always be up to me. And then that's when I'll hit it. So, that's a really interesting thing, is like, I just kind of intuitively knew it'll happen. I don't know when. I don't really care when, but I know it's going to. And
Do you think
it
giving yourself
took,
the grace
yeah,
of like the longer time frame helped you build the deeper foundations?
yeah, it did, because I don't I don't put pressure on myself.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting, like, I don't put pressure on myself because pressure doesn't do anything good. Pressure takes down performance. They've done studies on that. But I also find a place there where, like, there's something at stake, where it's like, where's the line between, like, I'm not beating myself, I'm not putting pressure, I'm not putting a big level of attachment. There's no fear there, but it's like, but we take ourselves and what we do, like, with a level of seriousness that, like, this is what we're here to do. I think a huge aspect of
Mm.
how that manifests is, like, understanding, there's a really, like, again, it's a whole nother conversation. I always go down rabbit holes, but, like, when you start to wake up to how powerful you are, um, part of where you see your power is in your word. And so saying you're going to do something is an expression and use of that power. So I don't take that lightly. I know that's power in action. We're going to do this. It's a decision.
Wow.
And so you don't just say things flippantly, willy-nilly. Like, it doesn't matter. It matters because I said it would happen. And that's matters because you are powerful. You are your
Mm.
word. So your word is powerful. But I don't make it mean that if I didn't do it this time, I'm a loser and I suck. I made it mean nothing, but I let it be feedback for me to say there's something I still got to do. So what has also helped me, and this is what I really try to train and share with anyone that crosses my path, is I'm really good at what I would call business diagnosis. So there's when you don't, like, here's what happens. You set a goal. And this is what most people do. They set a goal and they either hit it. One of two things will always happen. They either hit it or they don't, right? You could exceed it. That means you hit it, and you went beyond, or you didn't. Okay. So if you hit it, high five, you got what you want. If you didn't get what you want. So I already know there that there's something there for us. You either get the goal or the lesson. And that's the big thing. You either get the goal or the lesson. The lesson is what I needed to have already learned to hit the goal that I didn't hit. So I get the lesson instead. If I actually integrate the lesson, then I'm going to be closer to my goal next time. There might be something else to learn, but that's how we grow. That's why people say failure is the stepping stone of success. It's like, well, it's only a failure as a label, because failure is an interpretation. It's just not hitting your goal because you missed something, because it was a blind spot, because you didn't know about it, right? So when I don't hit my goal, when I don't hit the thing that I did, I am really, 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 really good at being able to diagnose why it didn't happen. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, it's in the numbers. Yeah. And so when you know your numbers tell a story. It's like a language, and they're trying to tell you, you missed this, you didn't do this. This is where it was a total breakdown. It was right in this little spot. Look at how this metric's way lower than all the others. That's where you lost people. That's where it stopped. And that can be anything. It can be from conversion rates to traffic numbers to registrant numbers to conversion rate numbers to how certain pages perform to how videos perform. Hey, no one showed up for your live training. Everyone dropped off after 30 minutes. This is where there's a problem, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at that and you go, that's what I need to work on. That's what I need to focus on. But that's not when people go, oh my gosh, I'm a loser. It didn't work. And instead, I'm just, like, really objective about it. I was like, oh, okay, that's why it didn't work. Let's go work on that. And what was not working in this launch of this product back then, I mean, it was working. It just wasn't where I wanted it to be. I knew it could be bigger, was the offer and messaging itself. So people, they don't really understand, like, what really are the mechanisms that will cause sales and cause people to invest and take action. And these are some of the big ones. And that is the messaging, the words that we use, and how we communicate the offer. And if we have bad messaging and a bad offer, your stuff's going to tank. And I don't care if you get 1 million people to see your stuff. Bad messaging and bad offer, it's not going to do what it could have done. But that just means, well, we need to work on our messaging. And so what does our messaging mean? Well, understand that there's a way that you can teach that as you're teaching, it's an art, but you can provide value while doing two other things. You provide value, and simultaneously you are providing or creating, excuse me, demand and desire for the thing that you sell. So you're selling without selling, and also eliminating any resistance or objections to the sale. And when you can learn to do all three of those at the same time, you're going to have unbelievable messaging. When you have a great offer, see, a great offer or an irresistible offer is something that when you just mention it, when you just say, what is it in 1 to 2 sentences? If people aren't saying, take my money right now, then we got a problem. And most people have great products and really bad offers. So this is what we call the secret weapon, that you're your audience's secret weapon, but that's the problem. You're still a secret because no one knows about you, right? And you I created something amazing. I'm like this amazing coach. I've got this amazing framework or technology. I'm just like,
and no one knows.
Care, and no one knows because you can't sell it, and you can't sell it because it's a bad offer. And so that there's an art and a science to that as well. But when I can be able to say something in even just a few sentences, and you're like, yeah, give me that right now, I'll take my money, then we know we're onto something. And both of those need to be in place. So long story short, I had to work on both of those. And I obsessed over those. And that's what took this to $200,000 launches to the million, and then the million up to, I think their highest has been like $5.7, $5.8 million in a 4-day card open window with this thing, that's incredible.
It must have felt incredible.
It does. And then it's like, here's the cool, weird part is like, we just keep launching, so we just launch, we do 2 to 3 times a year. And it was like, you're just in the groove where it's just another game. Like anyone who's in sports is just like, we're out there playing the game. We're playing to win. It's just a game. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. And it was like hitting a $5 million launch felt the same. It was the same experience as like the 300, the 400, the 500,000, because we're doing the same things in a way, but it's like, wow, we've got it nailed. And we're saying the right things at the right time in the right way. So, and then someone asked me, they said, it was one of my clients, and they said, James, you told me your goal last year was 10 million and you didn't hit it. So how do you reconcile that with your team? It goes back to what you were saying before. And here was the simple answer. And this is kind of like the full circle moment on that, is they said, well, the moment I set the goal for 10 million, the goal or focus was no longer on the amount of money, but it was on how we showed up. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, the goal was to show up and run a $10 million launch every day. And we absolutely succeeded on that.
Wow.
Did we get 10?
What a shift.
Yeah, what a shift, because there's what's within your control and there's what's not. And what a stranger on the internet decides to do with their credit card, you do not have control over that. Can you have an influence on that? Yes, but not control. So you want to bring all this meaning and attachment and story about who you are or who you're not based on something that is not within your control. That's a really chaotic life, because a lot of people are going to do things that you don't want to do all the time, right? And when you start to make what your focus is what is within your control, it's gonna bring a lot more like equilibrium and certainty in your life. And it's like, we showed up at an impeccable level. I mean, it was like a 5-star experience. Like, we didn't have any mistakes. It was a well-oiled machine. We had all these affiliates with it. We were all over the internet. It was like, I'm so proud of what we did. It doesn't matter anymore that we didn't hit some arbitrary goal that we pulled out of our ass anyways.
It's not going to be bringing you down.
Yeah, exactly. But how we conducted ourselves was like, that was the thing. And
it's what you're striving for, really.
It really is. And people don't really know that until you got to go after it and see that's like, that's the juice, is what we experience, the journey, the journey, not the destination. And it's like, well, the reason things are cliche is because they're true. People say them over and over again because they're true. So,
Hey, I find it really fascinating. Just going to quickly circle back before we sort of finish up. You're talking about before that, you don't really see it as a failure. It's something that you got to keep moving through. And what's really interesting is like you're looking at the numbers, you're looking at all these different numbers. And the only reason why you know these numbers and you can start recognizing patterns in those numbers and what's right and what is wrong is because you've done it and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. And then now when you're talking about it, you're talking about it with conviction because you've done it and you've done it so many times. And so I see someone like you having that much success because you just never gave up and you keep doing that, where you'll see somebody else and they put the blame onto themselves, and so they start looking inwards. And then, of course, that turns into a train wreck because then it's like the self-doubt, the comparison, the anxiety, the overwhelm, the like feeling lost, everything else. And they don't show up, like you would say, as the digital CEO and acts like a digital CEO where it's like, there's a problem and you're the captain, you need to fix it.
Yeah. What I'm about to say is I wonder will be very controversial because today it's going to seem like a contradiction. It's going to seem like controversial. Yeah. Because today there's a lot of people talking about like get in touch with your emotions and express your emotions and whatnot. And I'm actually going to say no emotion. No emotion. And people will hear that and like want to like, maybe get upset or whatever and get emotional over it. And they will interpret that as like stuff your emotions down. I was like, no. I didn't say that because that means you have emotion and you're trying to hide it. What I'm saying is the goal is no emotion. And again, like it's hard to say because what? No, but so if you follow are you gaslighting me and invalidating my emotions? I feel like a failure. I feel all this anxiety, all this stuff. Like, look, but trace the emotion back to the thought that you're feeding. And that's what got you to that emotional state. Anytime someone comes to me, like, I feel so overwhelmed, or I feel so much fear, all this, I say, what thought or thoughts have you been feeding? Where have you been placing your attention that got you here? And every single time it's just utter BS. It's a story, it's a meaning. So the meaning is generating this disempowering emotion. So when I'm saying no emotion, I'm saying no meaning. It's just, it's exactly what you're saying is, yes, if I said I'm a loser and I suck and nobody likes me every time I tried something and it didn't work, I'd feel the same way. But the difference is I don't tell myself those lies and I definitely don't believe them. And because I don't tell those lies and I don't believe them, I don't have that emotion. And so there's a level of neutrality in that it's just, I'm not going to make that mean anything. I'm not going to feed that other than feedback and data and clarity on what to do differently moving forward. And why that's so important, especially in business, and especially now, because there's a lot of people in a ton of fear like I've never seen in 15, 16 years. And they've done studies on this, how fear clouds our judgment because it moves us to different areas in the brain. So we can't access creative, intuitive areas that allow for solutions outside of the box. So you're stuck in all of that. You're going to take yourself down. You're going to make poor decisions, and your audience is going to sense that. And so to keep ourselves like centered in a powerful place is going to have you be even more successful. And so no emotion means no stories, no lies you're telling yourself, no BS, no meanings. It's just data points to inform future decisions. It's already done anyways. Whatever it is that we're sulking over is already gone. Let's just learn and gain from it. What am I taking with me from this that I can move into the future and get back on? I know like that's not what a lot of people want to hear. They want to like pity party and all stuff. And it's like, look, I've gone through all that. So I've been there. We'll sit there in the pity party, or, we can get back on the horse and work, because there's a lot of people that need some help out there. So what do you want to do? Pity party or transform lives, So
I love that.
Yeah.
James, I'd love to sort of just finish off of sharing a little analogy, because I know you love analogies.
I do.
This is something I've actually never shared this with anybody, but this is the way that my brain works. So like talking about business and our emotions and things like that, and hitting goals and not knowing when they're going to hit. The way that my brain works, and I think a lot of people would understand this after COVID, is it's like a big puzzle. And so if I went into my lounge room right now and I got out a puzzle, I can choose my puzzle. It could be 100 piece, 500 piece, 1,000 piece. Maybe 1,000 piece could be the $10 million a year business. And maybe 100 pieces, a $1 million a year business. So when I start that puzzle, I never doubt in my mind that I can't finish the puzzle. So I know that I can, but I know sometimes it might take me a little bit longer. I don't know.
Yep.
But as I'm doing it, right, every piece of puzzle is me doing the launch again and then going like, oh, show up rate. That's a piece that I was looking for. It was lost. And then I place that in. Once I place that in, I never lose that. It's there. And until I feel out the whole map, once I do, then I've completed the goal, and then I can put that away and I get out my bigger puzzle and I start working. But one important thing here is there is no emotion in the actual puzzle. There's emotion in me, of course. Yes, I have to keep myself under control and everything else. But then the puzzle itself, I look at it and I look at it subjectively and I'm like, okay, you're doing an amazing job. I got the team here. Everyone's getting in there doing the things. We're missing a couple of pieces. So we need to find someone that knows where those pieces are or what they are. And from there, I know I can create something incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you get to choose what puzzle you want to build. And puzzles are fun. Not all puzzles are fun. There's some that I'm like, I look at them like, are you kidding me? It's like all sunflower. Like, no, thank you. Right?
Sometimes it's just frustrating as well, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, it's like, it's okay to do 100-piece puzzle. And I tell people that all the time. Like, you know, you can choose to do things simple and light and easy. You know, I think at each level it requires something. If you don't want to give, it's not like, because people always say like, I don't know if I have what it takes. And it's like, no, you probably have what it takes. It's just a question of, are you willing to give what it takes? You know, you have it. I do want to give. And there's some people that say, I don't want a team of 8, 9 people. I don't want to do, you know, big multi-million-dollar launches with all these moving parts. I'm happy with this. It's like, bigger isn't better. Bigger is just bigger.
Totally.
And it's about doing, well, what do I want to do? And I think that becomes one of the most valuable questions that we should always be asking, that we lie to ourselves the most about, because it's like, what do you want? And is the answer what your parents want for you? Is what society wants for you? What the neighbors want for you? Or your brother-in-law? Or is it just honestly what you want? And my dad, I inherited stubbornness from him. And I'm so grateful for that, because like I've always been just really clear about what I want, and I'm so stubborn about it. And I didn't care. Everyone used to like laugh at me and tease me for wanting to start my own business and not go corporate and get a career and all that stuff. I was like, but I don't want that. So why would I go do the thing I don't want to do? And now they're all coming back and they're like, so can I take you out to lunch and pick your brain?
Yeah.
Yeah, for free? Like, no,
yeah, for free.
Absolutely.
I literally get that all the time.
I know. Oh yeah. That's great. It's a wonderful full circle moment when that happens.
James, I just want to say a big thank you for being on the podcast with me, for giving me an hour of your time. I know it's so valuable. I know anyone that's listening, like, they should know how valuable this conversation is for them. I know for me, I learned a lot of things. I'd love to just ask, where can we connect with you? Have you got something coming up soon? Where can we experience some of your online experiences that you create and craft and master?
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I still run my podcast today. We just hit 600 episodes over on the Mind Your Business podcast. And I share, you know, everything about everything. We just had sex experts on the podcast. So I like to touch upon everything that any type of entrepreneur would like, that's going to improve the quality and workability of their life. And so if you're looking for that growth, and we have wonderful, weird conversations on there all the time. That's the Mind Your Business podcast. Anywhere they host podcasts, I think we're on there. Instagram is a great way to connect with me. It's just my handle at James Wedmore. And then my free training series, where we break down how we built the business the way we did. It's kind of like, I just pop open the hood and say like, here's how we built it. That training kicks off June 1st. That's what we call the Rise of the Digital CEO. And it's really just like looking back and saying, I had to really, if I wanted to grow a business and do it the right way, I had to actually start operating like a business owner, not just like a shiny object entrepreneur with a bunch of to-do lists and 10 different projects. And how do you put that structure in place? How do you have that strategy? How do you put the numbers in? And that's our training series that kicks off June 1st. It's businessbydesign.net is the site for that, if anyone wants to check that out. And we do that live. It's an amazing training series, and I just like to show people, here's how we built this business, and here's how we've been doing this for a really long time, and it's pretty fun. So yeah, that's about it.
There it is. And just so everybody knows, like, Mind Your Business is a great podcast. I personally listen to that all the time. You'll see me there in June as well. James, thank you so much. And thank you so much for being my inspiration for so long as well. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you showing up over and over and doing the things that you do.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great conversation.